My name is Bill Jones. I'm with recapturefederalism.com. We'll be discussing today the immigration gang of 8's relationship with gangs, both inside this country and outside of this country, and what type of relationship they have. As you know, they formulated legislation at the Senate level. There's a gang of 8. Appropriate, they always use a word there, gang. At one time they had a gang of 14, a gang of whatever, and this time it's a gang of 8 in the Senate. 100 senators, and they have a gang of 8. That's 8% of the Senate, and they're determining and drawing up the legislation. Of course, they're not the ones that write the legislation anyway. A lot of times it's lobbyists and special interest groups write the legislation up. They push it. They have the overview on it, and they're coming up from 1986 was the last legislation. How did that work out? Didn't work out too good, did it? It made matters worse. And as you'll see with this report that I'm going to be showing from the FBI, it's gotten quite bad. The severity of the gang situation, the gang threat in the United States is pretty bad, and immigration has a lot to do with it. We'll go through that relationship. The new law that they're coming out with, it's for the benefit of the political parties. It is not for the benefit and protection of the general populace. It almost is an argument can be made that it really is legislation that's crime against the people, and it hurts the people more than anything else. As you can see from this slide, this is a 2011 National Gang Threat Assessment, Emerging Trends. The FBI had received funding and direction in 2005 from the Senate and the Congress to do this threat assessment. Gangs, they had done a drug assessment also, and then this built off of that. We will go through here and show you especially the relationship with immigration and illegal immigration, because that's what we're going to continue that with. No matter what they say, and we're going to protect the border. They haven't protected it in 40 years, so I don't think they're going to do anything now either. And what about it? General overview. What about the NGIC, which is the National Gang Intelligence Center? It was established in 2005 by Congress to support law enforcement agency with information. And both federal, state, and local enforcement information. It was focusing on the growth, migration, criminal activity, and association of gangs that pose a significant threat to communities throughout the United States. Yeah, it affects everybody in the United States, every individual crime. FBI, of course, is involved. U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration was involved. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and Explosives. U.S. Bureau of Prisons. There's a lot of gang members in prisons, of course. U.S. Marshal Service. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. And they're there, and a big part of this is from illegal immigrants coming in, illegal aliens. Also, the Department of Defense, there's a relationship there with gangs also. And the National Drug Intelligence Center, as I said earlier, they first started with the drug center, and then they build off of that because of the involvement of gangs and drugs. And of course, you have U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Again, the border. If we're not protecting the border, we're getting gang members come in. They're international organizations. Then we have off of this threat assessment key findings. And gangs are expanding, evolving, and posing an increasing threat to U.S. communities nationwide. Uh, the uh, the Congress of the United States and the executive branch have not been doing a very good job. They haven't even slowed the progress of gangs. They keep becoming greater and greater. There are, as you see, 1.4 million approximately active street, prison, and outlawed motorcycle gang members, comprising more than 33,000 gangs in the United States. And if you go down farther, you'll see uh, that gangs are responsible for an average of 48% of the violent crime in most jurisdictions, and up to 90% in several others. We had here just a few months ago with the crime and I'm from the Chicagoland area, so all my life. We had the president so concerned about crime and shootings and killing of little innocent children in the city of Chicago. I wonder why. Why do we have that violence? Well, he should know. He was involved in community activities on the south side of Chicago uh, for a couple of decades. He doesn't know why. Well, there's gangs. There's gangs all over on the south side of Chicago. That's why you have all these murders of these kids. Look down farther in this particular slide here. Gangs are increasingly engaging in non-traditional gang-related crime, such as alien smuggling, human trafficking, and prostitution. That's big time from crossing the border. And an unprotected border brings in all sorts of things. They're also involved in engaging white-collar crimes such as counterfeiting, identity theft, mortgage fraud, primary due to the high profitability and much lower visibility and risk of detection and punishment than drug and weapons trafficking. Wow, they've just made things easier, haven't they, since 1986? And it doesn't look good with this new law, does it? Probably should try something that works. Then the next paragraph, U.S.-based gangs have established strong working relationships with Central American and MDTOs. MDTOs, they mentioned quite a bit in this report. MDTOs is Mexican drug trafficking organizations to perpetuate illicit cross-border activity as well with some organized crime groups in some region of the United States. U.S.-based gangs and MDTOs are establishing wide-reaching drug networks assisting in the smuggling of drugs, weapons, and illegal immigrants along the southwest border, serving as enforcers for MDTO interest in the U.S. side of the border. And how are they addressing that with the new legislation? Nothing. The threat assessment goes on. Talks about gangs and alien smuggling, human trafficking, and prostitution. They're involved in all those things. And how does the new law, how did the old law work to stop any of that? Hasn't, didn't do anything, won't do anything now. Alien smuggling. You're bringing people off. They make a lot of money off of alien smuggling. They do. You have a report here, the box, House Committee on Homeland Security, U.S. Congress, increasing coordination between Mexican drug cartels, alien smuggling networks, and U.S.-based gangs. Most of this stuff, by the way, this report is from 2011. When did Fast and Furious, when was that made public? That was after that, wasn't it? This stuff's going way back. Oh, you're gonna blame Bush? Why don't you blame Clinton? He's involved in it too. And go back to Bush 41. Yeah, you keep going back. 1986 was the last legislation. Didn't do any good. Here we go. There's some statistics if you want to read it. And you see down there at the bottom, human trafficking. Human trafficking is another source of revenue for some gangs. Victims, typically women and children. Aren't those congressmen, senators, and executive branches so concerned about the war on women and the condition of children? Oh, the president has them standing behind him when he's talking about Sandy Hook. Well, what are they doing here? They're going to come up with some laws to protect typically these women and children that are forced, coerced, and led with fraudulent pretense into prostitution and forced labor. The Bloods, the MS-13, Serenos, Somali gangs. Yeah, a lot of them coming across the border, dragging women and children with them to put them as sex slaves. What about protecting them? The best way would be to stop them from allowing them to bring in the country illegal aliens. That would protect these women and children. Here we are, the next slide, about prostitution. Highlighted, bold there. Look what it says. The National Gang Intelligence Center law enforcement partners report that gangs in their jurisdiction are involved in prostitution, some of which involves child prostitution. So we have a relationship with our legislators, national legislators, and state ones too, with gangs involved in child prostitution. Oh, they must be real proud of themselves. They're not solving any problems. Next we have talking and highlighting again now the NGIC law enforcement partners report that gangs in their jurisdiction have ties to Mexican criminal organizations such as MDTOs, which we talked about already, what MDTOs for. Yeah. Wow, gangs here. So Fast and Furious, is that an American gang? Huh? I suppose you can make an argument. And look down at that list, and you see all of it. That I've cut off part of it on this slide, but it goes down. Look at those names. These are all gangs, ties to Mexican cartels, which is Mexican organized crime, drug cartels. This isn't just some amateurs. These are pros. These are professionals. Nice colored map, isn't it? Yeah, these are the MDTOs. And look at how they're colored. And the source, global intelligence. This is a worldwide problem. And it's not being solved by the representatives of the government of the United States. The government, of course, is the people. Our representatives aren't doing a good job, are they? Look at these major Mexican drug trafficking organizations that list that also. I bring up this slide because it talks about 2010. I believe they were talking about it, but this is from 2011, the report. Recent intelligence indicates that the MDTOs, La Familia Michoacana, probably mispronouncing it, has established U.S.-based command and control groups which report to leaders in Mexico who manage street-level distribution in U.S. cities. Command and control, you use that kind of language when you're talking about a military. You use that kind of language, command and control. That's how big it's gotten, and how nothing has been done properly in the last 4 decades concerning illegal immigration and illegal aliens, allowing criminals to come across here. How in deeply it involves every citizen in the United States. So in conclusion, what are we solving by these representatives? They're not doing a very good job. They haven't done a very good job. Who are they really representing? Uh, they're representing the criminal activities more than they are the general populace. They are sworn oath to support the Constitution, domestic tranquility, the common defense, and yet we have on a local level, we have sanctuary cities. Who are they helping? And when are they going to finally do the right thing? When? When are they going to do the right thing?